Welcome to Trinity Talks, today's news, tomorrow's leaders. This is the official podcast of Trinity Academy Brixton. Today's episode is brought to you by Tommy, Yasin, Yasmin, Carla, Shaquille and Danae. Today's episode covers the death of Charlie Kirk, so listener discretion is advised. If you'd like to get in touch with the show or for ideas about a future episode, please contact us on social media at Trinity Brixton on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, or at socials@trinity.futureacademies.org via email. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Trinity Talks. I'm Tommy and I'm joined by my wonderful colleagues.
Hello, my name is Yasin.
Hello, my name's Danae.
Hello, my name is Shaquille.
Hello, my name is Yasmin.
Hello, my name is Carla.
Today's episode explores a story that has shaken headlines and sparked intense debate: the sudden death of Charlie Kirk. His passing didn't just mark the loss of a public figure, it ignited a firestorm of conversation, confusion and conspiracy, raising deeper questions about politics, culture and the power of influence. When a public figure dies, the world doesn't only lose a person, it gains a narrative. But who shapes that narrative and why does it matter? Why do some deaths elevate individuals into symbols, even martyrs? And how does that transformation ripple through society? That's exactly what we'll be unpacking today.
Wow, thank you, Tommy. I want to talk about how when we hear the word martyr, we usually think of someone who gives up their life for a cause. But in today's society, it can also mean that someone gets attacked or criticized for their beliefs and ends up becoming a symbol. Today, as we're talking about Charlie Kirk and the symbolism of his death, some people see him as a major figure in conservative politics, while others may even call him the world's new martyr. But is that really true, or is that how he's presented? Charlie Kirk had founded Turning Point USA when he was still a teenager. Since then, he's built it to become one of the biggest conservative youth organizations in America. He's active on college campuses, gives speeches, and uses social media to reach millions of young people. His style is bold and often controversial. But here's the question: did he rise because he's a great leader, or because he came along at the right moment when people were ready for someone like him? I have a question to you all. Do you think his rise is more about timing or his personal style and leadership?
Well, I'd say as a person looking from a more outside point of view, his rise and everything was indicative of showing of the American side of popularizing politics to make it less about actual political and more about social topics and really distilling it down and making it simpler. He was known for making topics and the conversations that were against the general public narrative, but his opinions were politicized, his opinions were shown, and then that gradually influenced people. The reason why many people know him as like the conservative, everything like that, when compared to the rest of the world, American conservatism is much, much, much more far-right than the world. I think it's indicative and shows the difference between UK and US politics. I mean, if you come over to here, our political system is much more nuanced, where there's less of these kind of topics, and more people are more civilized discussions. When he came over to the UK, he was heckled, he was ostracized in general, and I think it shows a clear difference, and mainly the reason for his rise was popularism.
I believe that some supporters see Kirk as a brave, defending free speech and conservative values, but critics also see him as someone who uses outrage to stay relevant. Calling him a martyr changes how people see him. It turns him into a symbol of resistance, which can make political debates even more heated. Kirk has also influenced young people, especially Gen Z conservatives in America. He's shown that modern politics isn't just about policies or experience, it's about visibility, personality, and tapping into cultural issues. That's why he's so polarizing. People either love him or hate him, and both reactions make him more powerful. In the end, the bigger question isn't just about Charlie Kirk, it's about what this tells us about politics today. Some see him as a hero silenced by elites, others see him as someone who plays the victim to gain influence. Either way, his story shows us in modern politics the line between leader and martyr is very thin, and that's what makes him one of the most talked about figures of our time. Do you think that we will see more political figures labelled as martyrs like Kirk in the future?
I believe not, because Charlie Kirk, as an influencer in America, held a strong viewpoint that everyone disagreed on. He spoke about controversial topics that no one else touched because they knew the societal backlash would be very hard. And so we wouldn't see anyone else become a martyr in our modern day generation. And if we do, we see it as rare because Charlie Kirk glorified everything and he made everything seem as high and as controversial as it was. And through his political views, we can see that he made everything about how he sees it. And that's what typically made him a martyr. He spoke and made everything controversial as possible, which engaged everyone to their full potential. And I don't think that any other political activist or influencer has that much impact shown across all social media platforms.
So would you agree that, or disagree, that he's quite extremist?
I would agree that he is quite extremist, but others may contradict his view because his view was really traditional in rules. Like, he believed that everything had to be followed by principle, everything had to be followed by tradition. And so you could see that traditional conservative view. He didn't believe change as radical. He wanted to see gradual change. And so him emphasizing tradition made him seem more extremist than revolutionist.
Thank you for that. Now, we can all agree that Charlie Kirk's death created a shockwave across the globe, not only in America but in multiple different countries. People were grieving someone that they had never met. This is because public figures take on symbolic, emotional and personal roles within a person's life. When Charlie Kirk had died, some felt as if those values he had held were broken or even attacked. Sometimes grief says more about people than the actual figure. The mourning of Charlie Kirk can reflect fears of political violence and instability rather than him as a person. As humans, we project our hopes, fears and struggles onto these figures. When they die, we feel as if a part of our own story and our own life has been disrupted. How do you guys think people on social media grieve Charlie Kirk's death? And what stood out to you about this response?
Well, the biggest person that grieved across social media can be seen as Dean Wicks. He was live streaming on TikTok and other social media platforms whilst this happened, and we could show that the death of Charlie Kirk affected him personally. He cried in his live stream. He made videos emphasizing why he cried. And that collective grief isn't just based on his death in general. It's about how he made the world feel and how his views that he pushed onto and against others made the world feel as well. Because Charlie Kirk was a really extremist and controversial political figure. And so now that this death is gone, then there would be no one to contradict societal views as much as he did. So collective grief isn't just about mourning his death, it's also about what he's done to the world and what impact it will cause on society.
Thank you. Leading on to my next point, the stages of public mourning. At first, many people were shocked and in disbelief. His supporters were even in denial and believed that this was fake news or even possibly a hoax. Many were surprised on how such a political figure was shot fatally in public. There was a rush of social media reaction, especially on apps that Charlie Kirk was on, such as TikTok and even X. After that came the short-lived solidarity. There was a moment of unity, and many critics showed respect and showed how his death brought a small amount of unity to the public. Even those that disagreed with his opinions and views still mourned his death. Days after his death, we can see that people started to shape what his death meant within the political community. What stage of public mourning did you guys notice play out online, and how does this affect how we view Charlie Kirk?
Overall, I'd say that with his mourning, the thing I saw the most was, as you said, was unity, but also a level of disrespect. People used his death to split the world apart when death should unite people. I think it's really telling and showing of the internet that, yes, for a momentary reason, everyone was respectful and everything, but even the acting United States president, currently Donald Trump, was using his death for political means and for political violence, inciting the fact that it was some far radical left, and many people, even in the UK, were saying that this was some sort of left conspiracy in general. I was honestly shocked and dismayed by the fact that a man had died, and yet people using this yes, for some better things, like connecting against his points, some of his points people agreed on, such as his many points on education and increasing budget. But then after that, his death was used and was manipulated to further disunite a country and world that's already splitting apart.
I have a question. I'd like to say that, do you think that Charlie Kirk's death, do you think it fears young people now to enter politics thinking that they might experience the same that Charlie Kirk has gone through, such as his death or even the treatment that he experienced?
I don't think it will stray the youth away from getting involved in politics. Shown throughout time, there's been multiple political figures that have died because of their views. Examples for this is Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. This bringing of death of a political figure doesn't disunite people, and it doesn't stray people away from joining politics, but it actually engages them and inspires them to do more. Because political figures such as Charlie Kirk, he had a view, he had points to say, and now that he's gone, there's no one to say it. And so this encourages and gives space for other people to take his position and to start advocating for things that they believe in and share similar views on with other political figures.
Thank you. Charlie Kirk had created a relationship through social media with his followers. Thousands who never even met him were attending memorials, posting tributes, and expressing grief online. Much of the media are now framing Kirk's death as not just as a tragedy, but as a symbolic or ideological turning point, some calling him a martyr. This shows the importance of the parasocial bond. This helps fuel things because many of his followers and his beliefs, appearances, speech aligned with their identity or values. So his loss feels like a personal and communal loss. Because people already had emotional ties to him through his public persona, his death becomes more than just news. It feels like a personal loss in someone's family. Parasocial ties allow people to project emotional significance onto someone they admired or followed closely. Parasocial relations drive engagement, grief, outrage, solidarity, debate, all are content that spreads. Media outlets and social platforms feed into this because high emotional content tends to get more attention. It accelerates how quickly narratives form and sometimes misinform someone. Many people's first response were they were surprised that he had died, struggling to process that someone they saw so frequently in the media could suddenly be gone. This suddenness of a violent death intensified the disbelief. Followers described feeling that they had lost a close friend or even a mentor, even if their connection was only through screens. For many, his familiar presence had become part of their daily lives, so his absence felt very personal. Some expressed unease or fear, realizing that public figures they admire are not invincible and will face death. It reminded them of the fragility and unpredictability in the world, even in politics.
Thank you for that. Thanks to social media, anyone's death can become a viral sensation overnight. So I'd like to explore how online spaces shape martyrism and how the ideas of honouring and glorifying differ. Martyrdom has changed a lot from its original roots up to this age of technology. Martyrdom originally was the idea of dying for religious beliefs, and now it's slowly turned into a way to become a powerful symbol in society, especially through media where their stories can inspire. So I've got a question. So do you guys think that the changes in martyrdom have been beneficial to society or not?
I'd say honestly that the changes in martyrdom are overall negative, in my opinion. The fact that people's deaths can be used for something instead of for them being mourned. I mean, this is similar related to Charlie Kirk's unfortunate passing, but just a couple of months before that, there had been a case of two Democratic lawmakers who had been shot in a similar fashion. Yet they weren't martyred. They were laughed at, ostracized, and made fun of by the same community that's now currently martyring Charlie Kirk. Overall, the fact that people are using death not as a uniting force, but as a force against peace, against more political violence, is telltale and showing that these people that are martyring Charlie and everything are hypocritical at best and downright using his death for things that even he wouldn't have wanted. It's overall telling and showing of as Carla was saying, the overall martyrism, and it's sad, honestly.
I do agree that the way people have been reacting is rather inappropriate and they're using it for more negatives than uniting people. So, I'd like to ask everyone, when did you all hear about the death and where did you hear about it? How did you react?
Well, I was playing some video games with some friends on a call, and we were just having a good time. And then one of us was like, hey, some random guy in America passed away. And then I was like, I opened my Instagram feed, and this is a topic I also wanted to potentially cover in a future episode, is that I open my Instagram page, and the first video I see is him being live murdered, with it showing blood and guts and everything. And I mean, personally, I didn't like that, but I think it's a bit showing of the current Western narrative that people can see death and destruction of human bodies. Like, people were even making fun of it in the comments. You know, a man dying, they're laughing. And that really came with me, but I saw it around 15 minutes after it happened on Instagram.
I was walking home with a friend, and they got a notification saying that it happened, and then they showed me after.
Well, I was with some friends, and we were all just having fun. And then suddenly, in our group chat that we have for school, someone must have said that Charlie Kirk has died. And me, I did not believe it. But then I started reading news articles and doing my own research, where I found a video of him actually happening. And this shocked me. This actual public video that Yasin was emphasizing on as well, it like shocked me, as no one had censorship on it. Everyone was just posting a raw video.
So I was actually at home when I heard about this news story, and it had popped up on my Apple News notification. And at first, I didn't really take it seriously, didn't really comprehend what was happening. So I had looked on Snapchat, TikTok, and I see a lot of people posting about his death and how he had, like, there was literally, like Yasin was saying, how there was a video of his death, and it was really shocking, to be honest, because it makes you question whether did his views influence the way that this video was shared. And do you think if it was a different person, would it potentially be censored and wouldn't been shared around like it was?
I think, like many of us here, I also saw it on social media. My friend had sent me videos saying that Charlie Kirk had died, and then they also sent me a screenshot off of the Apple News. And after doing my own research, I had seen that it was true. And I think it sent a bit of a shock of like disbelief when opening Instagram and X and TikTok, and you could find the video or even just see it by opening an app of him being shot. So it really does show how social media doesn't really censor certain things at certain times, especially if it's a big political influencer. So I feel like that's something that should be discussed and maybe dealt with.
Yeah, I do find it very interesting that most people have seen the raw video of him being shot, and that really does emphasize how unclean and destructive the internet can be, even on sites that are more directed towards children like TikTok. When we as a society talk about someone who has passed, especially in charged or symbolic ways, we often walk a fine line between genuinely honouring their memory and unintentionally or intentionally glorifying them in ways that can reshape how they're remembered. In Kirk's case, how do we understand the way his memory has been framed online? Has it honoured his life, distorted his public view, or has it turned him into some kind of martyr figure?
I think, to be honest, this question's kind of open-ended, and I guess it depends on how you viewed Charlie Kirk. Some of his followers will see him as a martyr and that he died for the cause of going against societal norms and what society would deem as the correct thing to say in political views. Some may say that it distorted his public view, and the way we are honouring his death is not really honouring his life and the person who he was behind closed doors, away from his political and public figure that he put on social media.
When we turn our attention to global figures like Charlie Kirk, we see a shift, and these shifts create ripples, and the rhetoric of this creates influence on how communities form, how the narrative gets shaped, and how society divides the voice to amplify or silence them. With Charlie Kirk as a focal point, these ripple effects operate in real life on how ideologies are considered, how polarization is intensified, and how media frames him and his movements as a person. When talking about Charlie Kirk, the main interest is how communities formed around his shared beliefs. Charlie Kirk's rise in parts is a part of a story of how communities formed and shaped their ideals. Their ideals about governance, their identity, patriotism, and social influence. These drove him to often feel mainstream institutions or media have failed them, And this created social solidarity between everyone and created a sense of community. So how do you guys feel like Charlie Kirk's death will bring about a community?
I'd say overall that it's very much so strengthening his own community. There is a recent group of evangelical Christians, which is a denomination of US-based Christians, using even artificial intelligence to quote-unquote revive him and use his death as a point. I think overall that his death will be a uniting factor for his points, and the fact that the President of the United States was as a memorial, that the many influential figures were present. The Department of Justice of the US is considering that if you say against him, then that's some sort of either you should be fired or it's even potential terroristic actions. I think that this is going to unite people that will unfortunately do harm to other people. These people have talked about causing harm to people that have done this, even though it's been proven that the person who eventually did the despicable act was not even a part of that group. This is going to be a uniting time for people, but a destructive time in that unity.
How do you think that this disunity in communities because of Charlie Kirk's death can create consequences, and what consequences will have an effect on society?
Well, when it comes to death, people often look for someone to blame. And in this case, these followers who supported Charlie Kirk and his views and opinion will turn to different groups of people and try to blame them for his death, even if they have nothing to do with the death. This will bring unity within Charlie Kirk's followers, but then it will also bring unity within the groups who are indirectly affected by his death, who are probably being blamed for his death. It will bring unity to them. However, consequences are it will also bring division between those groups and eventually could possibly lead to more violence reoccurring around his death and possibly leading to more potential deaths just as big or even smaller than Charlie Kirk.
When talking about Charlie Kirk, the media brings tremendous power when capturing his essence. Journalists label his death as a clear label of a verified fact, and honestly, many think that it should have been blurred. How do you think his death should have been posted on media?
Well, I think that the media should have at least had some coverage and some reaction to it, because yes, it was an event that happened with thousands of people in attendance, but everyone had their own video and everyone posted it on some form of social media, whether it's X, Instagram, TikTok. And none of these platforms did enough to actually stop it and publicize that these can have negative effects on people who are watching. It can create trauma. And so the media didn't react at all. And it took nearly 2-3 weeks to actually get all the uncensored videos offline.
I'd say also, in my opinion, the whole fact that it's even shown was even on major news potentially, is that I personally disagree. This is a man passing away. No matter how controversial it is, his family should have had the opportunity to mourn and not have thousands or millions or potentially even hundreds of millions of people watching a person pass away. I don't think anyone here would like to see if they had a relative. I mean, in the crowd was his children and his wife. I don't think anyone here would have liked to see their own father passing away or their own mother passing away and being shown to hundreds of millions of people regardless.
Some people believe that the media must take accountability for posting this, and that the fact that this has been posted benefits no one. What do you think about this?
Well, I'd also say that one thing is that, yes, the media, like the mainstream media, whether it be BBC, CBS, everything like that showed it. But the main people that showed all of this, the death, that made the opinions and talking points, was just like Charlie Kirk, not mainstream news. These were from individuals, these were from people, these were from just people recording, they were there. These weren't especially from people in the mass media. I mean, they did a good job. The media did originally show, if I remember correctly, some of the Americans' TV shows were live streaming his debate for some reason. But the main people showing this are the general public. And the fact that the general public believe that the other parts of the general public wanted to see is a clear sign that there's something fundamentally cracking or breaking within our society. Less than 20-30 years ago, any sort of this kind of footage, whether it be, would be immediately censored and people would be outraged, but yet people now laugh at it.
This discussion really has shown that people have vastly different opinions on Kirk and if he is a martyr in the world or not. So a question for the viewers of this podcast is, how do you feel about Charlie Kirk and modern martyrdom? Thank you for listening in, and we'll see you again next time.
You've been listening to Trinity Talks, the official podcast of Trinity Academy Brixton. Today's episode, you have been listening to the vocal talents of Tommy, Yasin, Yasmin, Carla, Shaquille and Danae. Today's episode was edited and produced by Miss Johnston. If you'd like to get in touch with us or for ideas for a future episode, please contact us on social media at Trinity Brixton on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, or you can contact us via email at socials@trinity.futureacademies.org. Thanks for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time.